My reflex is great. I'm great.
Yeah.
No matter what. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Or like people are like, how's it going? I'm like, it's going.
I'm always just like a reflex. Great. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like nobody actually wants that answer most of the time anyways. Like if somebody said to you, well,
yeah.
Like, right?
You know what? It's awesome. And it fucking sucks. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I live in the end. So that's, I like, sometimes I respond, depends on who it is. They're like, how are you?
Yes.
I'm like, not good and awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Like, you know?
Yep.
Anyway, let's make a hard pivot.
Yep.
A hard right. We were having some conversations with some of our clients in our various programs, and we wanted to provide some insight, some open sourcing, if you will, about how we prevent and how we handle / support client complaints.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the fears from practitioners and coaches is the client complaint is your program sucks. It didn't work. You suck. I'm pissed. I want my money back. This is horrible. And all of the above.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that no matter what you do, you will still get those people.
It will happen.
It will happen. You will have people tell you that you are the worst investment they ever made.
It is a surety. It is one of the few sureties when you work with clients.
It's so heartwarming when you get those emails when you're like, you are the worst person I ever met. No, I've never gotten that. But,
no.
But like, we've definitely, but like we've gotten some doozies. Which fair enough. Like that might be your opinion.
Yes.
I hope.
This is what we're going to talk about, how to handle that.
And I just want to say, you know, with all the respect, and this isn't something to make light of, like for real, when you get an email like that, I'm not even going to say if, when you get an email like that, I want you to stop and like literally barricade your heart.
Yes.
Because for someone to say that you are a horrible, your program, whatever, is a horrible choice. They're so disappointed and like to the extreme. And it doesn't happen often, but it will, you know, you get big enough and you work with enough people long enough, you will get that.
It will. Yep.
It will happen. You know, my response is, I hope my program is the worst investment you ever made. Like, I actually hope that that's true. Right? Because think about all the bad investments and choices that there is the potential to make in this world. And I hope for your sake that is actually true. Because that means you have a sweet life. Like if you know what I mean? Like, that's how I always think about it. It's like, if you're this unhappy with this thing, like, and this is the worst, I was like, I hope that this is the worst for you. It's like, you know, this is when my kids say, you know, this is the worst day ever. I'm like, I really hope for your sake that that's true. It's not going to be, but I really hope that, you know, like for your sake, that this is a horrible experience for you. And this is one of the worst experiences you've ever had. Like, I hope that that's true. That's amazing. How do I get that life? You know, like
it's true.
That's true. So it's a really good perspective to have. We call those people tenors.
Yes.
Do you want to just define what a tenor is?
A tenor is somebody who goes from 0 to 10, like that, in any given situation, good, bad, indifferent, right? Like we tend to operate, we laugh, we're like 2 or 3ers. Nothing is really going to evoke much emotional intensity in terms of business.
Or life.
Things happen. Good, bad. It's like, okay, you know, either that's good, that's not good. What's the learning? What's the decision? What's the next step?
That's onward.
That's okay. Like that's like a 2-3 response. Tenors are like, this is the worst day ever. This is the worst day of my life. This program is terrible. I'm so confused. The world is ending. None of it makes sense. I will never be successful. That is a tenor.
I'm on like I'm in month 3 and I will never be successful. And
I will never be
right.
successful.
You're right. You won't be.
Like, that is a tenor.
Yeah, that is a tenor. So you're going to get those people. So we're going to give you some strategies that you can put in place in your onboarding, your accountability strategies to track and manage your clients, and then also some suggestions as to how to handle responses from clients. Because what sparked this conversation was in our mastermind, we had one of our clients sort of ask for some feedback as to how to handle this, a particular client that they had. And it really got me thinking that we've really mitigated those types of A, clients in my world.
Yes.
And B, those types of complaints. We've really mitigated them from like where they were even 2 years ago when it was, it was a lot to handle. And that is because we prioritize client success. And for us, this is, I would think the first strategy is we really take away our own expectations and we take away our own assumptions, and we really truly look at the client journey and where they're starting from, again, with no false like goggles on, and saying, okay, like they're here and this is their mindset, not wishing it was different, not wanting it to be different, not treating it as if we've already worked with them. We take a look at the ideal profile of the client when they start their program with us. Yes. And then we say, okay, what supports do they need in order to hit the objectives that we want them to hit? And so if you have a program and you're not thinking that way, then I would suggest taking some time over the next maybe month and really going back and saying, okay, like maybe you have an ideal client for your like brand, like, and if you're in our world, you should.
Yes.
We've only been talking about it for a decade. But you might not have thought about your ideal client for your program in these specific terms. So it's like, what bottlenecks does your ideal client have? What challenges do they have? What are their sort of unique mindsets that they have at the beginning of working with you, in the middle of working with you, and at the end of working with you, so that you can make sure that you support their journey with you as a client.
Yes. Let's give a couple of examples about what that looks like, because examples are so helpful. So what that looks like in terms of even delivery of your program is taking into account what your ideal client requires in order to learn. For example, you work with busy moms. Your busy mom ideal client likely cannot accommodate a 2-hour video training that she has to watch once a week with downloadable, fillable worksheets, right? Your busy mom will likely not be able to watch it, not have time to watch it, not do it, fall behind, and then feel either that she is a failure or that you are a failure, right? That is an example of understanding your ideal client and where they are in their journey versus where you want them to be. Yeah. Because you might say, yes, I want them to prioritize their time. They should be able to take 2 hours for themselves once a week. That's your perspective.
No. Yeah, exactly. Like that's your perspective. And I think a lot of practitioners and coaches who, whether you have a group program or you work one-on-one or you're in a clinic or you do direct sales. Yeah. We get so caught up in, well, are they going to like it and want it and buy it and da-da-da. And we don't put them at the sort of helm. We don't create action. And it's funny because we're not actually creating for them. We're creating in fear of them.
Yes.
And we need to stop doing that, right? We're creating in fear of them. We're not actually creating for them. Yes. And so another example would be if you are working, I wouldn't even say if you are working with anyone overwhelmed. We have to assume that anyone who's coming to work with you is underwater to some degree. We have to assume that. And so if we know that people can only take in bite-sized information chunks at a time,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best ways to prevent client complaints is clarity.
Yes.
Is clarity and setting expectations, very clear expectations from the start. And you do that in your onboarding sequence. And so for us, we actually recently revamped our entire 10K success system onboarding sequence because we were giving too much information too quickly.
So much.
So we actually turned our like 2 email sequence into a full on 3-day. It's 3 days, right? Not 2 days?
It's 2 days, but then there's a follow-up a few days later. So we'll call it.
Okay. So 3 days. We actually turned it into like a 2-3 part onboarding process where they're only getting bite-sized chunks at a time, which has dramatically improved our client onboarding process. And we know that because there's been a dramatic reduction in questions.
Yes. And confusion.
And so, so Brianna's saying, when I taught massage, one key part of the curriculum was students will be able to. Yes, and it was so helpful to have that always front of mind. What will my client student be able to do at the end of this class course? Yes, absolutely. So if you break working with your clients down into what do you want them to know and do after a week, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, after 4 weeks. So that's, strategy number 1 to prevent client complaints is have a really detailed over days onboarding process, right?
Yeah, I think for that too, if you keep in mind first impressions, right? First impressions, no matter what they are and what happens after, the first impression is always what somebody remembers. So if your onboarding is confusing, even if everything else that follows is so clear and wonderful, at the back of their mind, they're always thinking, this is confusing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep. And, so having really clear expectations. So for example, clear expectations of the outcomes that they're going to get. Working with clients, I just want to set the expectation that you can expect to see this result probably 2 to 4 weeks in, this result 2 to 4 weeks in, this result. And some clients don't see any of these results at all until week 12. So if you set the expectation correctly from the start, you're going to get a decrease in people emailing you saying this doesn't work.
Yes, that's so important. I can't remember where I first heard this, but it was like either you define the experience or the client defines the experience. And if you fail to define the experience, then they're going to come up with these unrealistic expectations because they don't know. Everybody has a quick fix. They don't know.
And they're coming up with these unrealistic expectations from cultural norms, which are lies.
Like it's so true, right? And if you don't define it, then you've given them permission to, and now you have to live up to whatever standard they set, whether it's realistic or not realistic.
Yeah. So being forthcoming in your onboarding to say, here's what you can expect.
Yes.
And so that is another strategy to prevent client complaints before they happen, because you're not leaving it up to them to make assumptions as to what the transformation is.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I want to mention is, in your onboarding, making it very clear how they are to communicate with you, how they are to ask for support, the types of supports that are available, and what happens after the program is over. Because what we know is that there are clients who will email on week 11, week 12, or week 13, or week 15 after the program is over and being like, I didn't get results. this wasn't helpful. I needed to be personalized, blah, 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 whatever their complaint was. And you're like, you didn't show up to any calls. You didn't ask for support. You weren't available. And now that it's over, you're complaining.
Yes.
Like you didn't take advantage of the opportunities that you paid for and you invested in, but now that it's over. And so there's obviously a psychological thing happening with that type of complaint. Like,
yes.
So we have to recognize that, because only after their term has expired are they now speaking up. So it's almost like they didn't honor what they actually invested in. They just now feel ashamed that they didn't and need to complain.
Yes.
So just recognize that too, that person is coming from a place, a disempowered place. Let's just say that the person is coming from a disempowered place. And some of the ways that you can support that person is by clearly communicating from the outset and following up throughout about how to get support from you if they are struggling, if they're facing challenges, if they are not where they are wanting to be, and you actually checking in, 2 or 3 times throughout the duration, if they are not attending coaching calls, like actually checking in. If they don't respond, that's on them, but to actually check in is important.
It is. And I think when you're dealing with any sort of complaint like this, I think there's a couple of key things that you have to keep in mind that are so, so important. And I can say this because I have genuinely been in customer service in some way, shape, or form since I was 15. So that is like 22 years. And you have to be able to, number one, divorce your self-worth from the experience that is being relayed back to you. Yeah. Whether it is accurate to the point that they are speaking of or not, you have to divorce your self-worth, because you have to be able to look at it and decide if there are actionable things that you can take from this and improve the experience for everybody, or if this is coming from somebody's internal experience and being projected onto you. And if your self-worth is mixed up in that, it's really, really hard for you to be able to do that. And then you make the number one biggest mistake of all time in any sort of customer complaint situation, which is becoming defensive. Yep. The minute you become defensive, whether you are completely in the right and this person is completely out of left field, or whether they are actually valid and you are kind of not in the right, being defensive ruins the entire experience for everybody and guarantees that nobody comes in happy.
Absolutely.
No matter what. So you have to divorce your self-worth so you don't get defensive. And number 2, you have to be empathetic. And empathetic does not mean you agree. Empathy is really important. Empathy means that you can put yourself in their shoes and you can feel what they're feeling and look at the situation from their viewpoint, right or wrong, doesn't matter.
Yep.
What did their shoes feel like?
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Because they had expectations of you and they hold you to a higher esteem than you realize.
Yes.
And so when people, I've had clients say, this is a scam, you are whatever it is that they're saying, because they either don't like a decision that I've made or they feel wronged in some way. Their feelings are valid.
Yes.
Their feelings are valid, but that doesn't mean that I have to defend myself or explain myself or cave, because the decision that I made also has valid reasons and they don't have to like it. So when you get feedback like that, like, this sucks, this is a scam, I didn't get results, I want my money back. The way that you can support those clients is by going back to the beginning and saying, you invested in this program, reminding them why they invested. You invested in this program because of X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Where it was clearly communicated to you in this email, and this email as to the terms of your investment. It was also communicated to you in this email, this follow-up email, this social media post, of which my records show that you've opened, because you can see who's opened or not.
Yes.
Right? That you opened those emails, that you had access to this support, this support, this support, this support, this support. And, you know, I understand how frustrating it feels to not get the results that you deeply desired, and let them know what they still have access to and give them a recommendation on how they can move forward.
Yes.
That's how we handle complaints.
Always.
That's it. We're not apologizing. Listen, unless we genuinely made a mistake or
absolutely,
or did not act in the highest integrity in whatever situation, we will, of course, take ownership of that and take responsibility and do the right thing.
Yes.
But you will get client complaints from people who did not put in their effort.
Yes.
Who did not show up, who made excuses, and the resistance for them was so high that there is literally nothing you could say or do.
Yes.
They are only going to see it from their perspective. They are not here as a growth-minded, transformation-based person. They are stuck in the resistance.
Ooh, and I have to say this because it just came into my head and it's so important. This is why we tie in the amount you charge for your program to an energy exchange and the results that the client will get. Because, and we see this over and over, when you undervalue your program and the energy exchange of the desired result and the investment does not match, your clients will not see success, and they will be much likelier to complain and to hold you responsible for that.
Mm-hmm. Because the lack of self-responsibility isn't there.
Exactly. And it's really important. It's really important that there's no set price for this, but the energy exchange has to match. Because if the energy exchange of like, they have to pay you $27 and the result is this life-changing, life-altering situation, like the amount of effort they would have to put in doesn't match the investment they made.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where that, you know, charging far below the value of the service is actually not in service to you or to the client.
Yeah.
Because this is the result.
Yeah. And so when you get complaints like that, there's two ways that you can handle it. I'm sure there's more, but I'll give you two. There's the first way, which, and this is a choice, and most of you at the beginning will choose this path because you feel bad and you feel like you've personally failed the client. So you will go over and above, you know, to support them until you realize that there is probably like nothing you can actually do that they will feel satisfied with.
Yes.
Because that's not really what they're complaining about. And so you can respond and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, let's jump on a one-on-one call. Let me coach you for free. Let me answer all your questions. Let me do this. Let me do that. And that you can do that. Like, I've done that sometimes. Because I wanted to. Because I wanted to provide that support to somebody. And I did it without any expectation in return. It was a genuine, like, sure, I'll spend 30 minutes on the phone with you to provide some support to you. And after that, you know, take what you want, I'm out kind of thing.
Yes.
Right? Sure. Or you could respond, which is how we respond to most complaints, is validating their feelings. Yes, this is frustrating and it does suck. Yes, absolutely. You have every right to feel, what's the word? Disappointed and frustrated and all of these things. Period.
Yes.
Then you start a new sentence. You don't say but, you don't say and, It's a new sentence. It's a new paragraph. Absolutely. You have every right to feel frustrated and disappointed and, and whatever it is that they're complaining about, period. Yep. When you invested in this program, this was clearly communicated to you. This was communicated, and you can outline what was clearly communicated, when it was clearly communicated, when they saw it, when they had options to ask for support, and that they did not utilize the opportunities that they invested in. Not that were given to them, that they invested in.
And if it was not clearly communicated, because this is new for you and you didn't know to communicate it, internally thank them. This is your learning experience. And now you go and you adjust the onboarding and you adjust the beginning and you adjust the contract and you do whatever you need to do so that for everyone coming after, it is clearly communicated. And for this person, you then make it right.
And then you make it right. Yes, absolutely.
Then make it right.
Make it right. And you don't bend over backwards when it is clearly communicated, when you know that you've followed up, they didn't take you up on it, you've checked in, all of these things. And so, and if you're not doing that, then maybe that is something that you start to integrate so that you do feel like you can sort of separate your self-worth and your level of integrity, right? It's like the way that we designed the 10K success system. And the way that we design programs moving forward, we do it with that level of integrity, because when somebody comes at us to say, I feel so alone, I am overwhelmed, we know that that's a personal decision and that's a choice to not utilize the supports that are provided. And therefore, we don't have any issue identifying where they can get support and not feeling like we have to bend over backwards to accommodate or to make them feel better.
Absolutely.
Because that's a personal choice.
And it's also in their best interest, because if, again, you are here for their growth and you are here to support them, you being able to clearly demonstrate without emotion that they are making a choice can actually be the best thing to ever happen to them, because they might be angry now. They might leave and not understand, but as time goes on and they start to see the pattern repeating, you might be the person who broke that pattern for them because you didn't just apologize and
bend over backwards. And enable that codependent sort of victim-y mindset of like,
really important.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry that you feel this way. Let me, do all the things. Yeah. So we hope that that's helpful. And even though you might have the best systems in place and love and care so much, you're still going to get people who don't like you, who are unhappy with your service, and who think you're a scammer. Even after, all the effort and all of the things, you're still going to get people who see you that way. And you know what? That's okay. Like, there's nothing you can do about that, And if you feel like there's some degree of truth in that, then do the work to fix it.
Otherwise, it is not your business what other people think of you.
That's right. Even if it's in your own Facebook groups. Even if it's in your own Facebook groups, that's okay. They're entitled to their feelings. They can say what they want. Right? That's fine. Yeah. All right. Well, happy Friday.
Good talk.
Cheers. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye, y'all.